Synthetic division is a shortcut for long division as long as your divisor is x minus or x plus a number, meaning the coefficient of your divisor for x has to be 1. If the coefficient in front of x is not 1, you cannot use synthetic division. So now how synthetic division works is you write a half box, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take what the divisor is, that x plus 3, and you're going to give it the opposite. So it's plus 3, you want to put minus 3 on the outside of the box. So whatever your divisor is, you're always using the opposite of what it is. So it's the opposite of x plus 3 would be minus 3. So you put the minus 3 on the outside. Then you're going to list all the coefficients and the constant on the top row. If a term is missing, put a 0. That would be the coefficient for the missing term. So again, the next step is to take all the coefficients of what your polynomial that you're dividing into and put it in the first row. So the coefficient of x to the third is 1. The coefficient of x squared is a positive 6. The coefficient of x is a positive 8. And your constant is a minus 2 or a negative 2. Now we're going to start the synthetic division part. And how it works is you take the first number and drop it underneath the box. Take the first number and drop it underneath. And now you're going to take your divisor, multiply it to that number, and put it in the next column. So a negative 3 times 1 will give you a negative 3. And then you're going to add down. So you have 6 minus 3 will give you 3. And we're going to repeat this. We're going to take that negative 3, we're going to multiply it to the 3, and we're going to put it into the next column. So negative 3 times 3 is going to give you a negative 9, and then you're going to add down. So you get 8 minus 9 is a negative 1. And we're going to continue until we have no more numbers. So I do a negative 3 times a negative 1 is going to give me a positive 3, and then I'm going to add down and I'm going to get a positive 1. Negative 2 plus 3 is positive 1. Now this last number is the remainder. So if it's 0, there's no remainder. But in this case, we have a remainder of 1. So now what you do with these numbers is you're going to put the variables back in. But the x is going to be 1 less power because we just did division. So we divide it into an x to the cube. So when I write my answer, I'm going to start with an x squared and then an x and then down to the constant. So I'm putting the variable back in by reducing it from one exponent. So it was x cubed that I divided into. So when I start my solution, I'm starting with x squared and x and then to the constant and then my remainder. So the solution here is going to be the x squared plus 3x minus 1 and then plus my remainder 1 over the x plus 3. So you have to write your remainder over your divisor. And remember, when you have a coefficient of 1, you don't write the 1, and that's why it's just an x squared here. Pause and try. So the first thing I'm doing is setting it up. I'm writing my box. It's going to be the opposite, negative 1. It's going to be a positive 1. I'm going to take all my coefficients and write it in the first row. So I get 4, negative 3, 6, and 5. Then I'm going to drop down the first number. So 4 comes down. And I'm going to take 1 and I'm going to multiply it to 4 and I'm going to get 4 and I'm going to put it into the next column. Now I'm going to add down and I get negative 3 plus 4 is 1. I'm going to multiply 1 to 1 and I'm going to get 1. I add down, I get 7. And then I'm going to multiply 1 to 7, and I'm going to get 7. I add down, and I get 12. And remember, 12 is the remainder. So now you're going to add the variables back in by reducing by 1 exponent. So it's x cubed, so I have to reduce it. It's going to be x squared plus the x plus the 7, and my remainder is going to be 12. So we end up getting a solution here of 4x squared plus x plus 7 plus 12 over x minus 1. Similar to the long division, if we're missing a term, you need to put that place marker. A missing term, you need a place marker. This does not have an x squared in it. You always want to double check that. We have x cubed, we don't have an x squared, we have an x, and we have a constant. So where the x squared should be, I would put a place marker of 0. So again, I'm putting in, the first thing I'm doing is whatever I'm dividing by is going to be the opposite. So it's a minus 1, so it's going to be positive 1 on the outside. I'm putting all the coefficients in. It's 1. My place marker 0 for the x squared. The negative 4 and the 1. And I'm doing my synthetic division. I drop the first number down. I multiply 1 to 1. I get 1. I add down. I do 1 times 1 is 1, and I add down. It's a negative 4 plus 1 is going to give me a negative 3, and then 1 times a negative 3 is going to give me a negative 3. I add down and I get a negative 2, and this would be my remainder. So you're going to add the variables back in, reducing it by 1 exponent, so I end up getting x squared plus x minus 3 minus, because it's a negative 2 as my remainder, minus 2 over x minus 1. Pause and try. So again, what's missing here is the x squared. I'm going to put a 0 in. Again, don't forget to do the opposite of the divisor. It's a negative 4. It's going to be a positive 4. Put all my coefficients in. 1, my place marker, 0, negative 6, negative 7. Bring the first number down. 4 times 1 is 4. Put it in the next column. Add down. 4 times 4 is 6. Put it in the next column. Add down. You get 10. 4 times 10 is 40. Add down. You get a remainder of 33. And then add your variables back in, reducing it by 1 exponent. So we get x squared plus 4x plus 10 plus 33 over my x minus 4.